What's up, folks? This is Addy Ads. This is the Public Intel Report, and we have a great interview today. Wendi Strauch Mahoney. Correct me if I'm pronouncing that wrong. Oh, ma'am. Okay,
You're the
thank
first
you.
one to get it right, actually, ever.
Oh, wow. Wow. Is that German or what is that?
Yeah, Strauch.
It is? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And
Interesting.
Mahoney is my married name. He's Irish.
Okay. Irish, right. Okay, excellent. And you're a journalist at UncoverDC and also at your own Substack, wendystrauchmahoney.substack.com.
Correct.
And we're going to talk about, kind of what inspired you to write. And you're actually, as we were just mentioning before, you actually don't even want to get paid necessarily for your writing because it's more principle-based or mission-based writing. I think you described it as. And then you also had history with the Truckers Convoy, I think, which was last year, which I actually briefly covered in Hagerstown, Maryland. I was there for a few days, or one day rather. But can you add anything to that introduction, just so people know a bit about you?
So Tracy Beans, who runs UncoverDC, a fairly popular independent news outlet. She asked me, it would be 2.5 years ago, out of the blue. She kind of knew me through Twitter. At the time, I wasn't as censored as I am now. And she asked me to write for her out of the blue. I'm actually not, I'm a writer, but I was not specifically a journalist. And there's a little bit of a difference in the writing. It took me a little while to adjust my sails there. But she asked me to write, and my writing is mission based. I have the luxury of being able to write for free at this point in time for a variety of reasons. It allows me some freedoms. I'm going to say there are reasons for it. It's not all altruistic by any means, but most of the things that I've written about, I write on a wide variety of subjects: elections, CRT, the border, COVID, our administration, a wide range. You could see, I've written probably almost 500 articles for UncoverDC. I have a Substack, which I don't use a whole lot yet, because quite frankly, I write so much that I don't have time to do both. But there was an article that I posted recently on the S1 subunit of the spike protein, and a citizen, a brilliant citizen, named Anthony Pena, and UncoverDC did not want to publish it for a variety of reasons, mainly because I think the science is still out there, and Anthony is pretty declaratory about what his beliefs are about the pathogenic agents in the spike. Although it's completely backed by science and research on his part, he's worked with doctors. It's not him just pulling it out of his head and guessing by any means. You can see there's some links in there to his own website that show you the level of understanding that he has of the issue where it stands right now. I mean, there's a lot that's unknown. So, I certainly understand why UncoverDC did not want to publish this particular one, but I stand by it. I stand by what I wrote in it. And I believe Anthony. I think he's onto something. So the reason I talk about that is because a lot of the writing that I do is to give people a voice, normal, everyday citizens a voice. I mean, I've written about Votify Now app, which was an app developed by Johnny Vieira, who just did it on his own. Hundreds of thousands of dollars of investment into it was used in the Arizona, the Kerry Lake case, the data from it. It allows voters to um, it allows voters to report things that they see at the polls. And as everybody knows, in Arizona, there were a lot of hinky things going on at the polls. And Votify now is an app that allows voters to report it on the app. And the data from that has been used in a couple of law, in Abe Hamadeh's case and in Carrie Lake's case. You know, Trumper Mel, her Dropbox initiative in Arizona. I mean, any number of, I sometimes I'll just write on a local issue. Schools in Chatham, North Carolina that are fighting, woke agendas, or you know, my point of view is, I want to see this country return to less censorship, less big government involvement, less suppression of life-saving treatments, as we, during COVID. I mean, it was insane. You know, I think a lot of people know at this point. I mean, I knew back in March of 2020, but a lot of people are beginning to understand what happened here in our country with the pandemic and how many lives were lost unnecessarily. So a lot of my journalism is in service of that kind of idea that um, you know if you're going to read news, and if you're going to read opinion and things like that, first of all, it should be made very clear which one is which. If it's your opinion, it should be very clear in your article that it's your opinion, not labeled a news article. And if it's a news article, it should be as objective as it can be. I mean, it's hard to remove all of it, but all of the bias, but it should be as objective as it can be. And I do pride myself in being thorough. And while I would not say, I mean, although I have broken news, that's not my goal. First of all, I don't have the resources to break news. I don't have the ability to constantly travel around the country and be there on the spot. I mean, I've done it. I've done it several times with the truckers, and with Loudoun County, and it's in Pennsylvania for election stuff. But that's not the main thing that I do. The main thing that I do is research. And my background is in linguistics and psych. And so I pay attention to the language that people use. And our government is full of propaganda at this point. I mean, in every administration you have propaganda, left or right, doesn't really matter. But in this particular administration, they have pushed things to way past the limit of being okay, in my opinion. With their work with big tech. And if you look, I have many, many articles that I've written, probably 30, 35 articles just on the misinformation campaign that is now deeply embedded in our government agencies: CISA, FBI, DOJ, DHS, HHS, you name it. And education, Department of Education. Very important thing, very important stuff, and things that people need to pay attention to, because the language and the content drive policy. They do. And so if you understand what they're trying to tell you and what their point of view is, then you can be better able to predict what what laws they're going to push, what executive orders they're going to push. You understand better their philosophy, and you can make better decisions about whether you're going to put up with it or not, I guess.
Right, right. That's excellent. Wow, that's amazing. So you've really been focused on the COVID stuff, and I saw in the article. This is amazing, Miss Mahoney. This is I know Kevin McCarran. It says his work on the subject of informed consent. Here we go. Kevin McCarran, PhD, has been a pivotal mentor for Pena, reviewing and advising on his research. I interviewed him. I had this COVID roundtable in
Mhm.
2020 where I brought scientists together to discuss that the virus, and Dr. McCarran was part of that group of people. Is pretty interesting. But to see him, come up in this article, and I'll probably do my own video piece featuring this, because it's something that I think is, as you kind of alluded to earlier, something that people don't want to necessarily report on for one reason or another. I don't know.
Yeah,
But
and the important thing about this particular piece is that a lot of the conversation is around the injury itself, the science itself, um, the the vaccines themselves, COVID itself. It's in isolation, and um, the issue is much more complex than that. But more importantly, um, two things. Uh, I don't believe that you have to be an expert. You can teach yourself a lot of things reading and thinking about it if you have the brains that someone like Anthony clearly has. I mean, if you hear him talk for 2 seconds, you understand how bright this guy is. But what I see happening is that even the doctors who have been brave and courageous, and I commend them, and they've spoken up, but even those doctors still want to be viewed as experts. And part of the reason we got ourselves into this trouble in the first place is because we're always trusting experts. And everybody can be wrong, whether you have a degree or a PhD, or I don't care if you're an astrophysicist, you can be wrong. But when we confer upon these people this idea that they're perfect and that nothing they say could ever be wrong, then you exclude a whole universe of thinking and of dialogue and discussion that you wouldn't exclude if you just opened yourself up to the fact that there might be some random person out there who is a divergent thinker, who throws something into the mix and says, "But what about this?" And I really look for that. And so the second piece is that this article, as I said, it gets at the complexity of how to fight this. And so Anthony, what he's done, and he can tell you more about it, but he took informed consent, which is step number one. He realized that it's pretty much non-existent in our country. And he, in the state of Virginia, said, we need informed consent here. Like, we need the ability to know what we're putting in our body. And that was always a thing before the pandemic. And now it's suddenly out the window. And then he was trying to use that as a roundabout way to get the pathogenic agents in the vaccine declared harmful, as a pathogenic agent, as harmful. Because once you do that, once you name it and you get that designated in the official places that it needs to be, then public health departments, when injury is reported, have to investigate. It's their duty. It's against the law not to. And so what he's doing as a citizen, people all the time ask, what can I do? And Anthony decided that he was going to ask that question. And he didn't just sit here on a keyboard somewhere and start whining about all the problems that we're seeing and how unjust it is and unfair and the left is this and he didn't do that. He actually said, what can I do? How can I be accountable? How can I explore the ways that I can take these harmful mRNA technology off the market until we have a better understanding of what the hell it's doing to people? And he, in a very kind of like elegantly simple way, he has articulated a way that he feels we can fight this thing. And the doctors, are in their orb, and the lawyers are in their orb, and the citizens are in theirs. And then you have somebody like Anthony who goes out there and he says, all right, we've got a problem. our legal, we have legal tools available to us that no one is using at the state level. That's how I'm going to go about doing it. And it's a process. I mean, he started, I think, in 2021 doing this, and he lost 2 court cases. He kept going, and it took him a long time. I mean, he emailed me his first stuff in July. I kept it. I continued to communicate with him, but I didn't really give him a whole lot of time. I wasn't ignoring him, but I didn't give him a whole lot of time because I wanted to see how he would develop this thing that he was concerned about. And he did an amazing job. And finally, for a variety of reasons, I decided to write about it. And a lot of it is because I feel like at this point, it's developed enough, and the lexicon for discussing this is out there now. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yep.
There's a lexicon to talk about it. There's an environment. If we had tried to start, let's say he had done this in the first 2 months of pandemic. I mean, think about what was happening there. Nobody was listening to anybody like me. I tried.
It's chaos. Yeah, it's chaos.
I tried to tell people, don't be fearful. Masks don't work. The vaccines are a bad idea. Why are we having lockdowns? I love Trump, but I did not like his vaccine rollout. I mean, I understand why he did it. I understand why he defends it, but I didn't think it was necessary because we had early treatments then. No one was listening to me. No one. And now to bring out something that Anthony is doing now is a very different thing. And for me as a journalist, that's the kind of editorial judgment that you have to to show is, there's a time and a place, just like there are seasons for everything. There is a time and a place where the story becomes, you've reached kind of a critical mass of information, and the story's ready to get out there, and it's ready, more importantly, to be heard.
Yes, timing is very important, I think, with how stories land or whether they take off. Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Yeah, do you have colleagues at UncoverDC, or is it primarily yourself? Because I know you said Tracy Beans runs that, and
Yep.
is there certain topics you cover more than others?
I mean, I'm pretty much the only one. I mean, people have done here and there, but elections are something that I focus a lot on. This misval and disinformation really has been my wheelhouse. CRT has been mine mostly. Michelle is another writer. I actually brought her in. I suggested she write for them because she has a background in health, and she's done some amazing job on health related topics. She doesn't write a whole lot. She's like a single mom, and she doesn't write a whole lot. She doesn't have a lot of time, so she's a little bit younger than I am. But and then Tracy has some guest writers in there. Adam writes. He writes for another outlet on the side. He writes once in a while with Tracy. And then we've had like Kyle Seraphin and Steve Friend write for us. We have some guest writers. Kevin Moncla, who I've worked with a lot on stuff in Georgia.
Yeah, as have I. I know him. I know Kevin. Yeah, he's a great guy. He's awesome. I really like him.
He and I have done a lot of work together, but he's written some amazing things for Tracy. Tracy's plugged in. I mean, General Flynn writes stuff for UncoverDC from time to time. So, but I've been the main person writing for them since I joined. I'm probably the most prolific there. Yeah.
Excellent. Fantastic. Congratulations. I'll definitely link that in the show notes in case people want to check that out. What can you say about writing versus journalism? You kind of mentioned it earlier.
Well, in journalism, you want to try to make things succinct enough especially now because of the information age, everybody's attention span. I mean, it's actually called neural pruning. And what happens with neural pruning is you basically stop using what you what you don't use, you lose, I guess is the best way to describe it. And so my belief is that attention has been pruned in a lot of people because of social media, limited, character space, etc. The busyness of lives, the fact that there's so much information out there that you can just turn on your phone and look at things. So people's distraction level are very high. So now a lot of my pieces some of my pieces tend to be longer, like this one in the Substack. But I do try to keep them as short as I can without sacrificing the content. And it also can't read like a research paper. Like I was an English major. Nobody in the in the public sitting down with their coffee. I mean, not nobody, but there are not a lot of people who want to sit down and read what sounds in their head like a research paper, right? And so just getting their attention in the first paragraph, that they understand what you're talking about right away, making it something which is very important to me, making it something that what I always try to do when I write something is I ask myself, okay, let's say I'm interviewing somebody like Shelby Bush, and her work in Arizona, for example. I'll say, Shelby, okay, we're going to spend some time together. You've been working really hard. If you had three wishes for three things that you want me to write about, to amplify what you've been doing and to help people understand what you're doing and why it's important, what would they be? And so I am very, my work is, I try to be very centered on what I'm writing about or who I'm writing about, not necessarily all the time what I want people to hear from me, if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
People don't really want to hear my opinion all the time. I mean,
Yeah.
they don't. They don't go to read things to hear Wendy's political views about something, or Wendy's, child raising views, or whatever. It's just, that's not what people want from a journalist in general. Now, influencers, which I'm not, might be a different thing. When you become an influencer, you have a profile and a persona, and you connect, especially if it's video or audio based. And I have some of that. I mean, I have followers that really follow my things like what we're doing right now, and really like to hear me speak. But in general, my goal is not to become an influencer. My only goal is to get a better reach on the material that I write about. That's the most important thing to me. And, I'm not doing this, for shits and giggles, quite frankly. I mean, you know what I mean? I'm not doing this to impress people or to make people think that I'm an expert on everything. I'm thoughtful. I'm self-aware. I'm smart enough. But I want to, in my writing, I want to provoke thought, and I want to kind of ask questions in my writing, or even answer questions that people might be thinking about, that I suppose people, like that article that I wrote yesterday on the Chinese spy balloon. The way I approached that was to say, okay, this thing's floating around, but what are all the questions that people might have around it? Why is it there? What's in it? What are the Chinese using it for? Is the push to get it, did they shoot it down for political reasons, our government, because there was so much pressure, public pressure? Um, you know, why use a balloon, not a satellite? There are so many questions, when I go through social media and I see outrage, and what I do is I turn I turn that outrage around, and then I write about the questions that people are asking under the surface of that outrage, if you understand what I'm talking about.
Yes. Yes, I understand. Yeah. What do you think about the state of media right now and journalism?
I think it's terrible. I mean, um, and even honestly, even in the independent news space, it's way too territorial. Uh, you know, there's not enough sharing. There's not enough. Um, you know, I mean, if I have a source, I link it. It doesn't matter to me if it's
Oh, I know
not
what you mean.
Uncover DC.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
and it
It's
doesn't matter if it's Breitbart or Blaze or CNN, or I mean, I have put CNN things in my articles. I put Vice. I put Guardian. I mean, all kinds of political. I'm looking for information, and if I link an article there, I have a very specific reason for linking it. I might think that somebody needs to see Vice, their writing on the topic. The Intercept. I mean, the Intercept has done amazing work, investigative work. Truly, I mean, on subjects. I can't. I'm trying to think what I wish I could remember what I've used them for, but
they do a lot of national security stuff, I think.
they do. But there's a specific topic. I wish I could remember. I can't remember it now, but they've done some amazing work. They deserve to be linked. If it's there, they do, and it's good work. It deserves to be linked, and that's the kind of thing that irritates me, quite frankly. I don't, now do I like articles that are lazy and that just kind of aggregate and don't sort, don't cite and don't give attribution? No, of course not. I'm not going to use stuff like that. But I think we need to be a lot more open about sharing, and we need to give credit where credit is due. Period. End of story. Regardless of political persuasion, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think part of the problem with regards to that specifically is the fact that there's so little money in journalism. But what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, um, on one hand, I've seen it corrupt people. I mean, you know, uh, if you're conservative and you're watching Fox News all the time, and that's all, I mean, I don't know why you would do that. I mean, a lot of the time, I mean, there are subjects, if you really think about it, that Tucker Carlson, as bright as he is, doesn't talk about. Why? Why is that?
Can you give some examples and yeah, maybe expound on what the point
Well, he's
is
never
you're
had
trying to
James
make?
O'Keefe on his program. I don't think he's ever had James O'Keefe on his program. Why? Why is that? I don't watch him a lot, but I know I've seen people say, why doesn't he talk about this? Why doesn't he talk about that? I mean, he talks about things, but it seems like it seems like either he's only allowed, like he's got some parameters and he's got some contractual agreements. That's where I think the money is problematic, because I would never enter into a contractual agreement with someone if they told me that I couldn't write about something. Now, with
Mhm.
Tracy, um, it was very clear. She's like, I don't want to publish this. That's fine. But she didn't say you can't write it somewhere else, right? That's the difference. You know what I'm saying?
I do.
I don't care that Tracy. I mean, if Tracy, that's her decision. It's her company. Her butt is on the line if someone sues her, right? So I understand that. That's just two adults doing business together. But if she were to turn around and say, "Well, you wrote that piece, but you can't publish that on Substack because too many people associate with you with UncoverDC," that's not right. Because I mean, that's a free speech violation right there. And so a lot of times um, I feel like journalists limit themselves. I mean, I wish everybody had the luxury that I have, but I do think that there's some limiting factors when you start, especially when it starts becoming huge sums of money, like the Sean Hannitys of the world and Mika and Morning Mika and Joe Scarborough and Tucker Carlson and all these well-known people in the media space. The money they make, they're making some deals with the devil in my opinion, and they limit what they can talk about, and that's where I see issues, and I don't know how to solve that because people need to make money. I mean, people need to make money, so you everybody has their limit. Everybody has, my limit is just a little bit more. I'm just not going to do that. That's it. I mean, free speech is free speech. I mean, if I want to go out there and say that, the sky is purple, but it really was blue that day. I mean, people can look up and see what color the sky is. They don't need to believe that it's purple just because I said it. Right. So,
Yeah.
I trust that most human beings are able to discern. They have the power of discernment. And if you don't have that, well, then that's really not my problem. Right? It's not
What
my
if
problem.
not many people have that though? Then it kind of is our problem, isn't it?
Well, I think more people have it than don't.
You do?
I
You seriously think that?
Yeah, because I don't think that I think the censorship is so bad. Like, for example, I don't think that there's as much division in this country as the media wants you to believe. I really don't. I
Mm.
think in my travels across the country and in my life, I mean, I'm a lot older than you are, I'm not lording it over you at all. I'm just saying that I mean, it's just a fact. And I think when push comes to shove, and you start to talk with people about what's really going on in their lives and why they think the way they do, you can break down a lot of those division, those barriers. And I mean, gosh, I'm telling you, I mean, the truckers, are you kidding me? I mean, these people, a lot of them, I mean, okay, I'm just going to say it. A lot of people would think, oh, well, truckers, they're just not that smart. They're not able to discern. Are you, I'm here to tell you that is the last thing as a group that these people are. Now, are they kind of based and basic and common sense oriented and uncomplicated? But uncomplicated doesn't equal stupid at all. And in fact, I would wager that sometimes uncomplicated is smarter. Is actually a better way to go about things, because I think, I mean, if you look at the landscape and the people that a lot of people listen to, these brainy people, a lot of it honestly is bullshit word salad. Okay, people twisting themselves into pretzels to try to look smart, when really, honestly, I rode across country with these truckers, and I'm telling you, the conversations that I had with these people, their ability to understand the average American heart and mind, and what's important, um, and just the hours alone in a truck to think and listen to. I mean, these people, men and women, I mean, they're listening to podcasts, they're listening to news, They're listening to each other, through their radios talk. Um, these are amazing, amazing people. And I really caution people when they say that, oh, well, the average American is so stupid. I don't agree with that, not one bit. Maybe they aren't as articulate as I am in the purest sense of the word, but when you really start talking with them and getting at what's important to them and their thought process, I'm telling you, there's stuff there. There's some substance there that people need to pay attention to. Really.
Yeah, yeah. And how did you get involved with the Trucker Convoy? Were you one of the organizers? Because I imagine that was quite amazing to, sit, and have those conversations with those types of people. Because as you mentioned, they're sitting there driving for hours, usually listening to the news or listening to a podcast or audiobook or something. Yeah. So how did you get involved and what did you think about it? And now in hindsight, because people talked about it being subverted, for example.
Um, it's probably one of the best things I've ever done as a person. Other than my marriage of 41 years and my 5 children, it's one of the best things I've ever done. Um, the first thing is that I spent 3+ weeks driving from California to Hagerstown in the cab of, several trucks, 3 to 5, forget how many, 5 or 6 trucks, different drivers. Um, so that's number one, just listening to that driver through an 8-hour, 9-hour day talk about his life, the things that are important to him, why he was doing that, what he was doing, um, his feelings about our country, about freedom, about our family. I mean, actually, and I'm not even being, I'm being truthful here. A lot of these guys knew a lot more about the specifics of the Bill of Rights and the Constitution than even I did. Um, they had, their recall about specific things is better than mine is. Um, so that's number one. Number two, um, I wish I could. I wish I could bottle what I experienced and then allow you to drink it, because it, as you're driving, I have a video on Rumble of a compilation of the video that I took while I was going across, and um, the American people, the flyover country people that I met and on the bridges and overpasses across this country, hundreds, hundreds of people at every overpass in remote areas of Oklahoma, Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada, remote areas, on the side of roads, on their horses, on farm fences. It, and then even the stops where we would stop and people would just come running up to you. Oh my gosh, what is it like? Thank you for doing this. I'm so worried about our country, my family, my children, my grandchildren. Just this heartfelt, like American, just just so, such patriotic people, such kind, good-hearted people, people that left their work to come out and stand for hours on the side of the road waiting for our convoy to come through. And we had a convoy at times 20 miles long, okay, and no one in the US knew about it. I mean, the mainstream media, I mean, I was on what's his name's show, um, Eric Bolling's show. Okay, and this is a ridiculous thing. I mean, look, he's fine. Okay, but It was so scripted. He had what he had to say. He was ostensibly there to find out what was going on. And he talked most of the time. And it was like a 2-second blip. Here's Wendi. Oh, there she's gone. Okay. I mean, come on. And the thing is, it's not an ego thing. I don't care. I mean, nobody's going to watch it, whatever. But it was just ridiculous. I mean, it's a waste of my time.
It's
All
about getting
right.
the truth out. Yeah, something similar happened to me. I was on the Hill to talk about the Brazilian election, and I was actually there. And it was they edited it, and it was kind of taken out of context, to be honest. But yeah,
You were in Brazil, or you on the Hill?
I was in Brazil, but I was on the show, the political show called The Hill.
The Hill. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, very similar
So
happened,
so
and
John Solomon? Are
yeah,
you talking about
even with, I'm sorry.
John Solomon? John Solomon's show? Is that the show you're talking about?
No, The Hill, it's kinda more left-leaning, I forget
Oh,
their
okay.
names, to be honest,
Okay.
Ryan something, and,
Okay.
yeah, I could send you it, but if you just type in The Hill, it's the first thing that
Okay.
pops up, but, yeah, I mean, I would say even the conservative media does the same exact thing. I mean,
Yeah.
I to go on to riff on the Brazil thing, I mean, as I mentioned, I went to Brazil, and they all spoke to somebody who didn't go to Brazil. So you know, that it's
How was that? Just
self-explanatory.
out of
It
interest,
should be.
how was it? What was that like for you?
I had to leave after 5 days because somebody associated with the State Department, which I assume is the CIA, uh, told me I should leave or I would wind up in a black site in the middle of the ocean. And I have that on video. So for those that may doubt that, yeah, I mean, which is to me, I'm not saying I'm, the most veteran journalist out here because I'm not, but that to me sounds like a very interesting story. Um, but what do you think? Selfishly, I want to ask you, what do you think? You would
I
think people would want to talk to the person who that happened to, right? Brazil's in the news, it's a conservative movement, but alas, here we are.
Yeah. Yeah, sounds about right for where we are in this country, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And speaking of that, who do you? I mean, because you're really like a citizen journalist in a way. You're kind of open
Mhm.
source. You try
Mhm.
to be unfiltered,
Kind of.
unredacted,
Yeah.
unbiased. Yeah, and that's to me that's true journalism. This you know PR stuff basically is what the rest of it is, as far as I'm concerned. And there has to be an incentive to not lie, at the least, if not an incentive to tell the truth. Or I don't think this is gonna be a situation um, that gets better. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I'm certainly not unbiased because what I am is I have values and principles that I stand by. And so when you start kind of putting your boot on my neck when it comes to medical freedom or free speech, or when you start taking my minor children in school, that don't have the ability, they're where they're growing and developing, and their teachers tells them that you can choose, what gender you are. Like that's just not reality. It's not reality based. I mean, it's not a political thing for me. It's nothing to do with politics. You cannot, men cannot have babies. Okay, that's it. It's not religious. It's not political. It's just the way it is. So I mean, if you call that biased, then yeah, then I'm biased. Okay, but when I speak, I mean, I'm very clear about why I think the things that I think. I'm not trying to pretend that I don't have a more, I guess, I mean, sometimes almost anarchist point of view. I mean, look,
Sure.
I'm not an
Or
anarchist,
libertarian, maybe.
right? I'm not an
Yeah.
anarchist by any means, but I don't, the less this government is involved in my life, the better, as far as I'm concerned. And by the way, I don't want, um, I really don't want climate crap pushed on me. And again, it's not political for me. I've read the wide range of data on climate change, and it just isn't a problem the way people are saying it is. And whether you believe that or not, it certainly shouldn't be dictating against all common sense our energy policy, for example. I mean, if people would just open their minds and understand that batteries, for example, are the dirtiest technology out there, there's no clean way to recycle them. So this business, Elon Musk, bless his soul, is trying to open up Twitter, but I don't agree with his electric vehicles. I don't agree with his this AI stuff he's pushing, chips in the brain. And I understand there's medical, reasons for it, but those are the kinds of things that I'm very examined about. These things are not simple things. They're not easy things to discuss, but I am very clear on why I am for or against something, and the people in my audience know what that is, and really most of the time it really isn't political. It's more I'm very I guess foundational person in terms of the foundations of our country. I understand why the founding fathers did what they did and why we are so exceptional as a country. And that isn't particularly political in my mind. That just has to do with the fact that we have some inalienable rights, and that are not Elon Musk's or yours or mine, just be telling each other that you have to drive an electric vehicle, or you have to have trans curricula in your school, or you have to say that certain religions aren't okay in this country, any number of subjects. And so when I write news, all of that is out the window. I'm just reporting on what I see. But if I'm writing an article, I mean, I've written op-eds, I've written articles, I've written commentaries, then it's pretty clear that's what I'm doing. But it's not really, I guess it's more in the conservative realm than not, but it's really more about freedom and natural rights as a human being, really. I think leftists in this country have lost their minds. They used to be the people that didn't want government censoring, and now they're the people that are pushing it. What the heck? It's completely topsy-turvy.
What do you are you registered to a party? And I also wanted to ask what you think about the GOP and the state of the Republican Party right now, especially in light of the midterm election we just had.
I've been a registered Republican. I'll probably change to independent at this point. Um, I don't think it makes much of a difference. Unfortunately, we are a two-party system. Um, I think the elections are. I think there's a lot of really bad stuff going on with our elections. I've written a lot about it, and I've seen a lot of evidence, hard evidence, hard evidence. I don't think the PCAPs and all that, a lot of the Mike Lindell stuff is true at all. I think some of the stuff he talks about is true. But I think where we're having problems in our country is with mail-in ballots, with mail-in voting, and it's with our voter rolls that are very dirty, and it's very hard to get to the bottom of that and clean them up. And I think that it is also cultural, because voting, the top, guiding principle of voting shouldn't be to make it easier for you to vote. Okay. Voting is a responsibility. And I really don't give a rat's patootie whether it's hard for you to get to the polls, or, these sham arguments that, somehow minorities can't get an ID. That's complete bullshit. You know, they can get IDs for all kinds of other things like Medicare and Medicaid, and they figure out a way. And this is nothing to do, by the way, with me being discriminatory whatsoever. Okay. It's just accountability is sorely missing in this country. And voting, the top priority should not be let's make everything easier for people. Like, let's automatically register kids when they're 12 to vote. Let's, no IDs, no way to vet somebody who's, so everybody should be able to vote in our country. No. I mean, if some illegal alien is coming into our country and voting, first of all, what does that person even know about our country? Now, a lot of immigrants know more about our country than some American citizens do. So I'm not discounting that, but I'm just saying, I want to see more order in like, I want to see less ability to take this cheating to scale, which is what the problem is. When you have machines, when you have mail-in votings, when you have dirty voter rolls, you don't really even have to try to look too far for what the secret ways they are using to cheat. I mean, they're just right there. And it's the problem is taking it to scale. I was talking with Garland Favorito in Georgia, who's a good friend of mine. And I said, Garland, if you could change one thing, what would you change to make things more, more transparent and fair? And he goes, just get rid of these machines, have people vote on a paper, check their boxes on a paper ballot and hand count it. And I said, well, why is that? And he said, because then they can't cheat at scale. That's it. You can't cheat. You're always going to have, look, human beings have wide range of behavior, both evil and good. Okay. Depending on your mental, what your mental makeup, your upbringing, all sorts of things, personality. But everybody, I'm sorry, if you hear a person say, I've never lied, that's complete BS. Okay. So we've all done stupid, bad things in our lives, me included. Right. So why in the hell would you leave openings for people to cheat easily and at scale? Why would you do that? So, I mean, until we change our attitude about the responsibility of elections and the voter, that's an underlying thing. And you can change all the laws. I mean, it's just like with guns. You can change all the laws. We've got all the laws we need in place for guns, right? But it's about the attitude of the gun owner, right? Are you trained? Do you go to the range? Do you respect it as a weapon? Are you just going to use it because one day you got pissed off at the grocery store, right? I mean, it's these things are attitudinal. They're responsibility issues. They're accountability issues. They are principle and value-based issues. That's what people in this country, a lot of times, the laziness of our electorate, I would say our electorate is maybe not as stupid as people think, but I do think there's a lot of laziness. And if you see out there in social media, I'll once in a while see somebody on and on and on whining about something. Oh, this is terrible. And why is this? I'm just so sick of this and nothing's ever going to change. And when I see enough of that, I'll ask them, I'll say, okay, what are you doing about it? Is this only a keyboard thing that you're doing here? Or are you actually doing something about it? And I don't care what it is, whether it's, okay, I'm going to spend more time with my kids educating them on the Constitution. Or it could be, I'm going to go speak with you before the board. Or it could be, I'm going to run for office. Or it could be, I'm going to donate money, or I don't care. But I do think a lot of people on social media are just there. And honestly, I don't even know how they have all the time to do all this. Okay. I don't understand. I see people on social media 24/7. I mean, do they have jobs? Do they have lives? Like, I don't I don't understand how people have the time they do to spend on social media the way they do, right?
Which people are you referring to?
I mean, just people in general. Like, as you see regular, you have your regular crew of people that you follow, and every time I jump on Twitter, they're they're there, and like even when I'm just not even participating, they're there. They're putting tweets. And that's not their job. It's they're working. You know what I mean? Like, what my point is that what else are they doing? That's all. What else are they doing? Or is it only, I'm just going to get here and I'm going to sit behind my computer and complain all day long? And by the way, agitate the space, make people miserable, make people feel more hopeless. I don't like that.
Are you talking about like bigger accounts that have pretty big followings?
No, I'm
Oh,
not.
okay.
I'm talking about
Okay.
like just observe.
Sure.
Go like just observe and go on social media, even small accounts that I see, and I'm just seeing a string of tweets all day long, and they have jobs, they have families, they have like real life is also very important, right? And action is very important. Social media is very there's a lot of downsides to it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Do you
But final
understand what I'm
thoughts
talking about?
here. Oh, yeah, I think so. I mean, I do think people are obsessed with it. I mean, the updates. I mean, I was just talking about it with a journalist, which I haven't posted the interview yet. But the demand from media outlets for content is getting absurd. Like 5 articles a day on anime, or 4 articles, whatever it is. The demand for content it seems to be insatiable for all these outlets, the digital outlets in particular. But yeah, social media in general, I think is probably driving a lot of that, and
It is.
probably a big factor in why journalism and media is the way it is today. Because, like I mentioned, there's very little incentive to tell the truth. If you lose 10 YouTube channels like me, and or you lose people have gotten fired for at big outlets, for example,
Mhm.
or you're not conservative enough, right? You're too
Right.
libertarian, right? With That's my problem, it seems. So yeah, it's I don't know, I mean, I don't know what to say other than it does seem to be like a renaissance model where you need to find a patron to support you. And yeah, it's unfortunate right now. But final thoughts here, Miss. We're actually coming up on an hour here, so I want to thank you for your time today. And where do you want to direct people? Do you have Twitter or website? And obviously you're on UncoverDC. You have an author page there, and then your Substack. But any final thoughts? And then yeah, any other places where you want to direct people?
I'm on Uncover DC. I have Twitter at WMahoney5, WMAHONEY5. I'm Wendy with an I, Wendy S. Mahoney on Getter and on Truth Social. I'm on Parlor and Gab. I think it's John Galt there, but I had to change some things to my real name, um, when I started writing because I didn't want, I didn't want to be, I wanted people to know that I was a real person and, writing and not trying to hide behind a handle. There's some
Sure.
accountability there.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
definitely.
so anyway, those are the places that I can be found. And I mean, I'm glad that there are people like you out there. I mean, Frank, I know him well, and
Oh,
he's
nice.
my, he's actually probably one of my favorite podcasts. I think
Quite frankly,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
he's awesome. Yeah, he's awesome.
Do you listen to his show a lot?
I I I don't listen to it as much as I would like to, just because I'm doing my own stuff a lot. But he probably has the best production out of any show. I would say. I can't think of anybody who has a more well produced show in the independent media, and he's great because he's so open. He's kind of an open book, and
Yeah.
more of a platform than a lot of these people in the conservative media. They they won't really talk to the actual bona fide independent journalists. I've concluded. So I'm astounded that people, in the GOP haven't like resorted to a coup or some sort of mass exodus. The way things happen this midterm, I mean, it's amazing. Like Ronna McDaniel's still in power, McCarthy and McConnell. It's astounding to me that there haven't been more
It's going to
people
take
even.
time. It's going to
Yeah,
take
you might be
time.
right. You might be right.
It's going
Yeah.
to, you build something for decades. It takes decades to unwind it, and it's going to take consistency and commitment. And again, there's a paucity of both. We need to. People give up so easily. Well, it's not worth it. It's not working. That's what I see a lot. People are like, well,
Yeah.
nothing's working. I mean, we're not getting many wins up on the board. I agree with that, but we will. Just takes time.
Awesome. Thank you, Miss Mahoney. Hopefully we can chat again at some point in the future. Thanks to everybody for listening. Stay frosty, folks, and we will see everybody next time here on the Public Intel Report. The independent media and journalism you can trust is running on fumes. As a result of technocratic censorship, the tragedy is that hardworking independent journalists who have ethics and integrity are considering leaving the field of journalism. For as little as 3 cents a day, you can support my independent journalism media career at buymeacoffee.com/addyads. Thank you.